Electricast. This episode is brought to you by Bumble. So, you want to find someone you're compatible with, specifically someone who's ready for a serious connection, totally open to having kids in the future, is a tall, rock-climbing Libra, and loves rom-coms with vegan pizzas on Tuesdays just as much as you do. Bumble knows that you know exactly what's right for you. So whatever it is you're looking for, Bumble's features can help you find it. Date now on Bumble.
The sun. You know, that big hot thing in the sky we all want more of? We've got plenty of it in New Zealand. But you'll also find warmth of a different kind here. Like the rush of adrenaline or a welcome that you feel. The more you give to this place, the warmer you'll get in return. So if you seek the sun and then some, you'll find it all here in New Zealand. 100% pure New Zealand.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudette, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudette, and I am really excited to be speaking with my next guest. Today, we're talking with Naia Kete, song healer and transformational breath coach, founder of the Undeniable Sisterhood and Song Healing Trauma, co-founder of urban reggae band Say Real, and NBC's The Voice alumni. Having spent years as a broke street performer in Los Angeles, hustling to be heard, Naia is passionate about empowering women and young people to claim the truest expression of their voice so they can share their gifts with the world. She has since performed in some of the world's largest stages, including Bonnaroo, Outside Lands, and SXSW, and has dedicated her life to supporting women in healing through song and sisterhood. Naia was hailed by the Rolling Stones as an earthy soulstress, and her band, Say Real, was named LA's hottest new band by Us Weekly. I am really excited that Naia has carved out time today to spend with me and to share her beautiful story. So let's get started. Welcome, Naia. I am so happy to have you on the show today.
Oh my God. I know I've heard that before, but every time I hear it, I feel like I'm blushing.
Well, it's all true. What I know about you and being connected to you, you are incredible. So all of those things are true. And also, I've gotten to know you for really only a couple of months. It feels like a lifetime.
It does.
But getting to know you, it's like I feel this connection, like I've known you my whole life. So I am really excited to get started. So before we do, tell us a little bit more about Naia. Who are you? I would love it if you would share just a little bit more background about the woman, the personal side of your story, and then we'll talk more about what you do.
Oh my goodness gracious. There are just so many different directions that I could take this, but I am an artist. I am a sister. I am a soul sister. I am a daughter. I'm a big sister, eldest of my mom's kids. I have soul family. I have chosen family. I have blood family. And I love to dance and I love to sing and I love to use the arts and somatic tools as tools for healing. And I'm deeply passionate about particularly women, but beings, any being, really being able to articulate whatever is true in any given moment. And that stems from a unwillingness I had for a long time to articulate my own truth, right? I was unwilling for the longest time to share, to express. I internalized a lot. That's the way that my trauma manifested itself within my being, is internalization and withdrawing from the world. And so as an artist and performer, I became deeply passionate about articulating truth. So that's what I'm a stand for.
Yeah, I love that about your story. I feel that connection to you because I too felt that a lot of things about my life that I internalized a lot of it. And my expression was I used to draw every single day when I was a young girl up until 26 is when the very last time I actually drew anything at all. But I went to art school and that was just my passion. I think that was my outlet. It was my outlet for my way of dealing with the trauma that was going on in my home. So I really feel that connection to exactly what you were saying with withdrawing within was the way that we dealt with our traumas, but our expressions of getting it out of our systems, I guess you could say, is through art. And you're doing a lot more than that now. So thank you for sharing that. I truly appreciate learning more about you. And I'm learning more about you each time that we talk. So thank you. So
Yeah.
you had an extensive music career from street performing to being on some of the world's largest stages. How did those early experiences shape you as an artist and inspire your mission of empowering others?
Well, backing up, I grew up in a musical family. And so there was always music around. When it comes to music, I often joke that I never had a choice in the matter, not because I was being forced to do it, but literally because I didn't know that anything else existed. As far as I knew, music was everything. I even remember not long after I moved to Los Angeles, being on a stage in downtown Hollywood and going, what do you all do with your lives? Like, what do other people do? And that was in my early 20s. So I really was just immersed in music and in art and in the arts. And for myself, my musical journey has been quite a ride. When I moved to Los Angeles, I had all of these dreams. I moved out here with my fiance, well, then boyfriend, now fiance, and little brother. And we had all of these ideas about how we were going to become famous rock stars, of course, right? And I had a manager at the time. I got a booking agent. I don't know if I even wrote it in my media bio. I was also on The Voice. So there's that stage as well, right? Before all of that, I just had a dream. And when I got to LA, I was really a sponge. I was lucky in that I did have management at the time. So I had an anchor of a human being who could show me around and book shows and teach me the ropes and introduce me to other people and stuff like that. But I hadn't yet developed who I was as an artist in a lot of ways because I hadn't been challenged to. And music came so naturally to me. I never thought about it. It wasn't until I got a publishing deal that I even started to understand just because I write a song doesn't mean I'm supposed to perform it, right? Just because I write a song doesn't mean that song is for me to sing on stage as an artist. And before then, I would get so confused about how I could write songs and then not enjoy the set list that I put together, and things like that. So it was really, in answer to your question, how did I go from busking to being on those stages? It was connection. It was luck. It was putting one foot in front of the other. I started busking on the street because I got a job when I first got to LA and we wanted to busk. We wanted to street perform because we saw other musicians doing it and we're like, oh, that looks cool. Turned out we were making more street performing than I was at the job. So I quit the job, did that full time, 5-6 days a week, sometimes anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day. And so that was a grind, but we did get a lot of exposure, right? So between that, just showing up every day and doing the grind and allowing ourselves to be seen, and the management that I had at the time, and then being on The Voice. I mean, I auditioned just like everybody else, but I actually got on the show and made it through the blind auditions and through the, what do they call it? When the two, I don't even remember. It's been so long. The two people compete, made it through that. And so that gave me a ton of exposure as well, and landed a booking agent after The Voice and got more gigs as a result of the booking agent. My booking agent at the time was the same booking agent as Aerosmith's booking agent. So those were some fun tours because he could get me on these big stages because of his connections. But could never put together a tour that made any sense because I didn't really have much of a following. Just because you have exposure doesn't mean you have a following who's going to pay to see your shows, right? So I'd be playing Bonnaroo and South by Southwest, which are these like huge hundreds of thousands of people attend these festivals, and then play a bar gig in the middle of nowhere to no one for nothing. Like it was a wild ride. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. And thank you for letting me know that it's South by Southwest. I didn't realize that. But I love what you were saying about getting that exposure. It's like your own form of marketing, I guess, right? For the musicians,
Totally.
You're out doing the busking. I love, and that's one of my favorite things too, is to stop and listen to someone who's musically inclined and supporting them, but also getting poured into too. I always felt like I was getting a lot out of it too, which was a lot of fun.
That's beautiful to hear. Yeah, that's beautiful to hear.
Absolutely.
That's what we live for.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask you, this is something that you do, which I feel is a really important aspect of how you work with young people. So could you explain what you mean by song healing and how music can be transformational for trauma and how that works?
Yeah. So I have this memory of being a girl, sitting on my bed with a guitar in my hand, feeling like I had to write a song that would make me cry. And I share that, and it's like the memory it's like a visceral experience in my body, thinking about those moments that still happen. Just happened the other day. I was like, okay, I'm going through something. Where's the guitar? Right. And when the pandemic happened, as a full-time performing artist, making my living gig to gig, show to show, my livelihood went away overnight. And then I was presented with this opportunity. I was basically an artist in residence unofficially at this nonprofit dedicated to women in music. It was actually founded by my fiance's aunts. And one of them approached me. And she was like, there's this program for artists that want to put artists on salary during the pandemic, but you have to demonstrate the impact of your arts in our local community. And you'll be on health insurance as well. So I was like, okay, I've lost my living. I've lost my way to make a living. There's no gigs anywhere. Everybody's staying at home. And now you want to put me on salary and put me on health insurance, which I'd never had, for demonstrating the impact of my art? What? That's insane. And so I was like, okay, I've always said that I want to use music to change the world, but like, what does that actually mean? And so this gave me an opportunity to really be with and contemplate what that meant. And I remembered those moments of sitting on my bed with a guitar in my hand, feeling like I had to write a song that would make me cry. And I was like, oh, looking back at it, I realized as an adult that what I was doing as a child was I was giving myself an outlet for transcending, transmuting, releasing the trauma that I was experiencing as a child, but didn't know how to articulate. Because I talked about the things I'm most passionate about is helping people articulate truth. And for me, truth is different from fact. There's a distinction in my viewpoint, the difference between truth and fact, because truth can change from moment to moment, from breath to breath, depending on your experience, on your perspective, on how much you've healed or haven't healed, right? But fact is unchangeable, right? And so what song gave me a chance to do was it gave me a way to explore truth, even though that truth could change, right? Even though not everybody would even believe that truth, because truth isn't fact. It's truth. It's true for me. Might not be true for you, right? And so I thought, man, that was me healing my own trauma. I looked at my body of work and music. All my original music had this theme. The theme was healing, and the theme was healing trauma. And I thought, wow, if I could do that for myself, can I do that for others? And so song healing trauma started at first just as a practice of sitting in a room across from a young person. And I think I've said this to you before. It's one thing to be sitting across from a young person. It's another thing to be sitting across from a young person of color. It's another thing to be sitting across from a young, poor person of color who's been traumatized. Right. And so to be in that room and create an environment, even if it's only for an hour and a few hours a day, for that young person to feel safe exploring his or her truth. And then it was my job to take that truth and translate it into song in service of their healing, in service of their liberation. And that's what song healing trauma is. And there's a lot more to it, right? But that's what it is in a nutshell.
Oh, I love that. I just love it. I really feel like that's such a beautiful way to help someone move through the different levels of their truth. Like you start at a level. I agree with you. What was true for me in my trauma no longer is true for me today. And from what I went through, like it's part of, like, I look at all of those things from my life as part of the journey. They're part of my story, but they don't define who I am. And I think that's where the levels of truth come into play. Like the trauma may have defined you at one point, but as you're healing, it no longer does. And how do you use that part of your story to move forward and make changes with your life and maybe in the lives of people around you? So I really love what you do with song healing. It's an incredible thing that you're doing. And I think young people too, it's hard enough that they feel maybe that their voices are not being heard. So this is a great way for them to like get that out and to feel like they are being supported by someone who understands exactly that whole meaning around healing from within and how do we do that. So I appreciate that you do that. That's a great thing to have on your resume, by the way. And I mean, I know you don't do it for recognition as far as like, hey, look at me, I'm doing all of these things. I know you do it because this is just who you are. It's like soul level. Like this is the person that you are, and you want to do this for young people. So thank you.
One more thing that I'll just say about it briefly is one thing that's so important to note as about that memory of me sitting on my bed with a guitar in my hand. I wanted to do that so often because of our trauma response, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. We don't want to confront the trauma and the feelings and the memories associated with it because of that response. In music, though, like when you're going through a heartbreak and you're like, I need to play that Adele ballad that I love, or whatever the thing may be, right? When you're going through heartbreak or you're feeling rage or you're feeling, right, any kind of discomfort, oftentimes we go to music to feel those things, right? Not to run away from them. And sometimes we do the opposite. Sometimes we're like, okay, I just need to put on a playlist that's just going to get me lit right now because I'm done, right? And we do that too. But music is really, I think coming to young people as an artist, as a musician, it's a different context than a parent or a teacher or a security guard for the youth that I was working with, right? It's a different context than what they're typically used to. And we go to music because we want to confront. That gives us the environment to which we can feel good about confronting those things because it's music. And I think that piece is really important.
Yeah, I think music is really healing. There's just something about it. Like you said, when you're going through something, you turn to that song that you feel like it resonates exactly the emotion that you're feeling. And that's how when I listen to music, usually, I mean, I love the lyrics, but usually I'm drawn to the musicality of a song before I'm drawn to the actual lyrics of a song. And so I love to be able to feel how that music, just the music itself makes me feel. And then the lyrics are like that added bonus for me anyways. So now let's move on to one of the next things, which I'm a part of, which I am really actually excited to be a part of. It's something that was introduced to me just late last year. And it really came at a time where I needed it the most because I was feeling that I wasn't being supported. And I felt like, especially as I said, I've said this story before when we've had our meetings, that an email came from you that popped into my email on a day that was like, yes, I need this. And I was able to go. Like, you invited me to come to this new, not necessarily new, but was new for me, sisterhood. So you've created the Undeniable Sisterhood, and you focus this on healing through song and community. And I believe community is really a huge piece of self-care for me. So what needs were you hoping to meet through this initiative?
Well, to be honest, I didn't know at first. The Undeniable Sisterhood was born in service really of song healing trauma. The program where I was put on salary lasted first for 6 months. Then I had 3 months off. I wasn't on salary. And then they wanted to do it again, another 6-month run. I was like, great. Yes, let's do that. Right. So it was a little over a year that I was involved in that particular organization. And when the salary ran out, and because of course they need to give other artists a chance, right? I'm all for as many artists as possible experiencing this. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I need to keep working with youth. How can I create revenue for myself so that I can so that I know my needs are covered, my bills are paid, my food is on my table, so that I can keep working with the youth. So there was actually a little bit, it was need. I needed women. I was like, when I don't know what to do, I turn to women. And I was like, y'all, I need you. I need my sisters. It started with my closest friends and family. Like, will you become a part of this to not only support what I'm doing, but give these songs a space to be heard? Because the material in song healing trauma is heavy. I mean, these young people have been through a lot, everything from domestic abuse, sexual abuse, gang violence, and everything in between, right? And so I needed a safe space to share their music without sharing it publicly, right? So I started monthly gatherings, which you've now been to, as a place to share the songs for the youth that I was working with. And then it became so much bigger than that. And I started to realize, oh, I don't just need you so that I have something for the youth. I need you because I need something for me, because I'm showing up and I'm working with these youth all day, every day, listening to horror, right? And being impacted by that. And I need to go to a space where I can relax, where I can literally let my system settle and reset and find people who can really meet me at depth, so that I can keep showing up as my best self for the young people and women that I work with. And so I think, to answer your question, what is the need that the sisterhood solves? I think there was something like that you asked. I think it has a lot to do with receiving. It was a year and a half before I realized, and this was a year and a half of me running the sisterhood before I realized, like, oh, I need something too. Right. And so a lot of this I learned through my own experience of what I need is like, oh, I need to receive. I need to show up in a space and be held. I need to show up in a space and lean in. I need to show up in a space and where the depth of my pain relieves suffering, where the depth of my suffering relieves suffering, and the depth of my joy fuels joy. That's where I needed to be. I didn't want to take away from the space by being joyful or being too much. I wanted to add to it. And so what happens for women when you create a space where your joy fuels collective joy and your suffering relieves collective suffering, there's an ease created in your physical being, your mental being, your emotional being, where you can actually, that part of you that's always on, that's part of you that's always showing up in service for everyone else, and has capacity, like is designed for it, is here for it, is living her purpose, is living her best life. And at a certain point, we hit that edge, right? So to be in a space where we don't have to effort or white knuckle our way through anything, and where truly every aspect of us is welcome. I haven't decided. The only thing I've decided about you as my sister is that I love you and that my love grows. It only deepens. There's nothing you could say or do to change my love for you except to help it grow. And so that does something. That does something for the system that I wouldn't have, and it unfolded organically. It really did. It was just It was something I needed to support the youth. And by the way, we still are doing it. We're getting ready to members of the Undeniable Sisterhood, your membership sponsors Song Healing Trauma containers. And the next recipient of a Song Healing Trauma container is 13-year-old named Casey. And she's the daughter of one of our Undeniable sisters. So you'll hear more from her and her mama in the coming weeks and months as we begin working together. But yeah, there's something to that women need. I know I did.
And don't we always, we need something. We actually, if we can't find it out there, we'll create it. And I think you creating this at first, like you were saying, it was to help with your song healing for the young people you've been working with. But then you realize, okay, there's power in this community of these women that are coming together to support each other, and they're pouring into me. And I didn't even realize that I needed it, because I think
exactly.
And you know, for me, that doesn't surprise me, because of knowing you, just the short amount of time that I've known you, I can tell that the reason why it probably took a while for it to catch up for you was because you are so giving, and you were more, it's just in your nature to be pouring into others. And I think when you recognize, oh, this is something that actually fuels me as well, it's going to fuel me even more to do the other things that I do. So I really love that. And so as a woman of color in the music industry, what unique challenges have you faced, and how have you overcome them?
Wow, that's a deep question. You know, it's challenging for me to answer, because it really wasn't until the last few years that I actually owned the fact that I am a woman of color. I'm a mixed woman. And so I have light skin. My dad's Black and my mom's light skinned. My dad's African American. My mom is Jewish. And I didn't want to deal with the conversation around it, to be honest, for the longest time. And it was coming from I think a loving place where I was just like, you know what? I'm just a human. I'm a human. I'm a singer. I'm a woman. I love you. I love me, period. Right. So that's where it was coming from. But it was also an escape mechanism. I wasn't willing to take a stand for any position. And I remember a few years back, I was approached by a wealthy white man who had a lot of money that he wanted to spend. And he studied the work of Frederick Douglass. And he felt like the work of Frederick Douglass and the message that he left through his legacy needed to be communicated to young people. And he felt like music was an effective mode of communication to communicate that message. And so he approached me and asked if we wrote a song about the work and life of Frederick Douglass. If we did that, he would, he basically proposed he would fund it. And at first I thought he was like joking. I was like, is this guy for real? And long story short, it turned out he was. He gave us $100,000 to write a song and put it out about Frederick Douglass. And so I am like, oh my God, we got to live off that money for about a year. We got to do the most epic music video we've ever done in our lives, plus a live video, plus we hired a publicist for the first and only time in my career. It was so fun. And I remember we got this through the publicist. They secured a premiere of the music video for Frederick's song Freedom, was what we ended up naming the song. And the premiere was on a publication called Afropunk, which is, I'm sure you can tell by the sound of the name of it, attracts a very African American, Black power forward demographic of people. And I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I love this outlet. I love what they represent. I love what they stand for. And then we released the song and we got so much hate. We got so much hate from the Afropunk community and beyond. Like, it blew up but it was not good. Let's just put it that way. I got called whitewashed. People likened me to Rachel Dolezal. It was like this whole, like these hippie white dreadlocked, that's the another thing. I had very long dreadlocks at the time. I hadn't ever cut my hair. And it made no sense to me, right? I grew up in a bicultural family. I studied West African drum and dance growing up. My grandfather was the first Black man to graduate from the U.S. Naval Academy. I had never had to, and I had been making a conscious choice to not have to justify my Blackness or explain my Blackness. And then all of a sudden, I release a song about freedom, and I'm being told by the Black community that I'm standing for that I'm not allowed to sing about it. And that was the first time in my life that I was like, okay, you need to take a stand. You need to decide who you are and where you stand on the issue of race. And it was deeply uncomfortable. But what I started doing was I started asking questions. My initial response to that was to try and justify, right? That was the first word I used, right? To try and justify my Blackness, to try and justify that I could sing the song because of who I am and the family that I am. And I've been to Africa and I've studied the dance and da, 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 da. And it didn't feel good. And so what I started doing was I started asking questions. And I did that for like a couple weeks, I went back and forth with these haters. Like, what's going on here? Why do you feel this way about me? Right? Like, where's this coming from? And I got into dialogue with some of the folks that were hating on the song and ended up finding some common ground through the line of inquiry and just being open and compassionately curious. And so that was unique. That was unique. And that was definitely a challenge. And I mean, there's so much more that I could say, but for my particular brand of woman of colorness, I've had to decide who I am and where I stand and be really clear about that. And when I do get hate, I've chosen to engage in dialogue versus try and defend my position, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And thank you so much, because I know as a woman of color who is also mixed, my mother is a white woman. She's got freckles. She's got strawberry blonde hair. My father is very Black. And it's like they were walking around together. My mom was pregnant with me almost to give birth at the end of like 1962. She's in the US with my father walking around because he was a musician, and they were just walking around. She was walking around with him like nothing, nothing's wrong with this picture. And I just wondered, like, I asked her, where did that bravery come from? And I told her that I'm still in awe of it because of the times that she could actually walk around confidently and then have me. And then she went on and she married another Black man, and she had my two younger brothers. And it was just like, wow, it just kind of blew my mind. But again, being a woman of color growing up myself, what I had to deal with was, I don't want to check one box. I don't want to say I'm Black because I'm two different ethnicities. I want to be able to choose both. I don't want to negate one by choosing one. And so that was my struggle of, when the census would come out, or you filling out an application for something, or a job application, and they ask you, what are you? Are you Black or are you white? And it's like, well, can't I say I'm both? Can't I just say that I am who I am? And so that was something I struggled with. So I'm glad that you were able to share that with me, because again, I can imagine it must have been interesting going through the music industry and trying to find your place and feeling like you have to justify who you are because of the color of your skin doesn't necessarily match what might be part of like your story. But does that mean that you're not? And I love the fact that you were able to say, you know what, instead of being reactive, I'm going to be proactive. And from this place, become curious, ask questions, and have that dialogue. And I think that is a lesson there to learn from that.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting. I remember the first time I claimed I'm a Black woman too, and how uncomfortable that was. And then immediately when right on the edge of claiming it, I thought about my grandfather, my mom's dad, who's on my white side, my Jewish side. And then I felt him be like, well, what about me? And I was like, wait, I'm a white woman too, and it's been this whole, or I'm a Jewish woman too. It's like, it's been this whole thing, and then some Jewish people have attacked me before for like when people ask what my race is and I say I'm Jewish, they're like, well, that's a religious thing. You're not allowed to say, like, it's so, I'm just like, oh my gosh. And to be honest, like when I really feel into it, I don't know. I'm still in the inquiry. It's like, on the one hand, I do feel the legacy, right? I feel the legacy of my ancestry and wanting to really honor the legacy by claiming my heritage and my race. And then I also see like the next level, which is like, but beyond that, like we are just all human. And then beyond that, we're all just souls who are returning to source anyway. So what does it even matter? You know what I mean? And so there's so much there, and I'm still exploring what my stand is in it. But yeah, as an artist, I think what's different is just being in the public eye and being subject to so many opinions. And so learning how to navigate that in a way that doesn't completely take you down has been a big piece of it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, because that actually leads me to my last question. What advice would you give aspiring young musicians who want to share their voices and gifts with the world?
I mean, I would say articulate your truth and remember that it can change. And start simple. Start with the feeling. Start with sensation. Start with emotion. Then go into the story if you choose. If you don't choose, it's not a big deal, right? But like, start with the truth. Simplify the truth. Make it a color. Make it a sensation. Make it an emotion, whatever it may be. And then articulate that through your voice or through your creative expression, whatever that may be, and know that it can change, and that's okay.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here today and generously sharing what I believe is such a powerful story. You have an amazing passion. I love that what you do. Like I said, the song healing, that was the first thing that I gravitated towards, and then learning about the Undeniable Sisterhood. And that was like, wow. Like I was blown away by these amazing things that you are doing, because it really speaks to my soul and what I'm doing out in the world and what my purpose is. So I am really, really thankful that you not only are empowering women and young people, but you're doing it in a way that helps them to find their voices so that they can speak their truth and allow their truth to have different levels or different colors or however they want to express it. So I really want to say again, thank you so much for being here today.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I love you and the work that you do so much. And I believe in you so much. And it is such an honor to support a woman like you. What? It blows my mind. So thanks for being who you are and being such a champion of me and the work that I do and of the sisterhood and of yourself.
Thank you so much. And I know our listeners are going to be feeling motivated after listening to this beautiful, amazing conversation and hearing your story and what you do. I hope that they go out and they learn to just speak their truth, like you were saying, and just go out and live their lives and live it from a place that's authentic to what they truly want. I think a lot of the time we look to the exterior instead of like looking like, what do I want? How does it make me feel? Does this really align with my truth? And your truth, like you said, can change, but just being able to do it from that place. So I definitely love that. And I'll make sure to include your contact info for anyone wanting to connect more and also to learn about this Undeniable Sisterhood if they are so inclined. And again, thank you, because you are such a beautiful and uplifting spirit. And I always feel so good when I'm in the same room with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And to our listeners, again, thank you for tuning in. I hope Naia's message empowers you to keep pursuing your purpose and sharing your voice. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Have you ever wondered what actually happens in Congress every day? Stay informed on Capitol Hill's daily happenings with a concise, factual summary of the Senate and House of Representatives' activities from the previous session, free from bias, on the Congressional Record Daily Digest podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and discover the process from the heart of U.S. politics. The Congressional Record Daily Digest, an Electricast production.
Electricast.
Welcome to Sarah Talk Solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, you've tuned into a bit of a different type of show. I'm Sarah B and I'm your host. You can find me on my IG, which is Aussie_Sarah_LA. I talk about amazing, relevant conversations and topics and what functions that goes on in this magical, wonderful, wonderful city of the City of Angels. My IG, which is Aussie_Sarah_LA.